All right, it's time for Teddy Covers to join the show as he does every single morning here on Betting with the Bag. Although, as I said at the top of the show, for this morning with Jimmy sick and ailing, an ailing bag today, unfortunately for Jimmy. It's Betting with Bobano today. Teddy Covers joining the show as he always does every morning. Teddy, how are you today?
I'm doing all right. I like betting with Bobano. That's got a nice ring to it, buddy. I have a question. Now that Jimmy's not here, I got to ask you, why do they call him Jimmy the Bag? He won't tell me.
You know what? I've never heard the true answer and story to that either, and that's shocking because I've known Jimmy for a while now, years now since I've been working at SBR with him. But that's a good. What have we got in the chat here? We got to see if someone can give us that answer. You're right. I have not. It's not one of those things, Teddy, where I'm thinking to myself in my spare time, boy, Jimmy the Bag. I wonder where he got that name or how he got that name. But it's an interesting question because I don't have the answer, unfortunately, for you either right now. But nevertheless. It's something we will get you that answer at some point.
I appreciate that.
Teddy.
Thank you.
We will. We'll work on that for you for sure. Speaking of working on things, let's work on this Thursday night card. Obviously, we'll all hit on everything with you except hockey. I mean, Teddy's one of those guys. You can't tell the difference Sidney Crosby from Bing Crosby. So we're going to leave the hockey discussion out of it with Teddy here today. But everything else we'll get to with Teddy. Starting with the NFL game, Teddy, I made a case for as banged up and beleaguered as they are. Now that the line is down to -3, I made a case for Kansas City. I got a bet on the Chiefs now, laying the 3 on the road. Maybe I'm just down on Denver more than people are. I took Tennessee last week, and I was as angry and infuriated as I've been in a long time watching a game because of the inept play at the quarterback position of Marcus Mariota. Inept is the word. Okay, if you watch that game, there was nothing you could say that, oh, Marcus Mariota did that well. No, he did nothing well. He did everything horrendously in that football game. And Denver, you look at their last 2 wins, everybody's saying, oh, turning point. You got some life and some energy back in this team, playing better on both sides of the football. Hold on now. They beat the Chargers, who are lousy as home favorites, and once again proved that against a Pittsburgh team on Sunday night playing with Devlin Hodges, their third quarterback. And they beat a Tennessee team that's totally inept at the quarterback position and offensively is way below average. So those are the 2 wins for Denver to sort of pump themselves back up. I know Kansas City, Eric Fisher on the O-line. The O-line's got some injuries. The D-line's got some injuries. It's concerning that Carlos Hyde, who's not a top-tier elite running back in this league, ran amok against this Chiefs defense last week with Houston. Now you got to face Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman in this Denver backfield, which in theory should be a much tougher test for this Chiefs defensive front. But man alive, I mean, this is a big-time move toward Denver. And now that it's 3, I mean, you look at series history, Chiefs have had no problem beating this team. 6-0 straight up, 5-1 against the spread, last 6 head-to-head. And I know the Kansas City Chiefs defense is a worry. It's a big-time worry. They're not stopping the run. They're not getting off the field on third down. That's a concern for sure. But, you face Deshaun Watson. You face a competent Colts offense with Jacoby Brissett in the 2 losses, and Frank Reich, who can scheme an offense and get a team ready to go from that side of the football. In my mind, I'll trust Frank Reich to put together an offensive game plan that can work against a defense like Kansas City's, and he did on that Sunday night game. Joe Flacco doesn't scare me as much as those 2 previous quarterbacks that Kansas City's face did, Brissett and especially Deshaun Watson, the way he's playing. So now that this line's 3, with Kansas City, Teddy, I'm getting in on it now. -3, value going my way on this Chiefs side. Maybe I'm stubborn because I bet against Denver last week and paid the price for it, unfortunately, with Tennessee. But I'm going to go back to the well. I think this number now with Kansas City, despite the injuries, is one, in my opinion, that's worth betting now at -3. What's your take on Chiefs Broncos?
So I'm not going to pull the trigger on KC. I would only bet KC in this game, and the concept is simple. Chiefs are good. Broncos are bad, and it's a field goal game. And I'm with you 100%, Ian. Should I call you Ian or Bobano? Which you
Ian,
both?
I like hearing Ian. I've called Bobano too much. I do have a real name, a birth name. You know that, right? Ian Cameron. I do, believe it or not. I wasn't. Mom and Dad did not call me. Yeah, let's Bobano Cameron. No. That didn't happen. So I like hearing Ian every now and then.
Exactly. I got a last name too. It's Savransky. The Covers is nice. It's a good nickname. But Savransky is the real name, obviously. But look, there's no comparison between these 2 teams. Okay, Denver is not a playoff caliber team, and Kansas City, if things break right for them, are capable of winning the Super Bowl this year. So at -3, I totally get it with KC. I wouldn't talk. And the two losses the Chiefs have suffered over the last 2 weeks, where they lost to Houston and they lost to Indy. You can make a case that the Texans are the second best team in the AFC and the Colts are the third. I mean, you really can. They're both better than a lot better than Denver, and particularly the offensive lines are a lot better than Denver because that's the concern here. Kansas City, in each of those two losses, their opponent's game plan was real simple: hand it off, burn the clock, go on these long, time-consuming drives against a team that can't stop the run, and keep Patrick Mahomes and the offense off the field and prevent them from getting into a rhythm. And it's worked. It's worked 2 straight weeks in the second half of these games where, you just grind out first downs on the ground and keep Mahomes on the sidelines twiddling his thumbs. Denver, in theory, is supposed to be capable of doing it. And the wise guys are looking, though, this is all sharp money coming on the Broncos. They're saying, look at those rushing stats. They can run the football. In a matchup of Joe Flacco versus Patrick Mahomes in a 3-point spread, I ain't taking Joe Flacco. Okay. But I think the better bet here, and my lean here, is towards the under, simply because I'm expecting, Denver's going to do that. Denver's not taking shots. Flacco's not a QB who anybody trusts right now, especially the Broncos coaching staff. Denver wants to win exactly the way they won last week. Run the football, grind it out, keep the game as low scoring as possible, extend drives. We know what KC wants to do. They want to chuck the football around, but Mahomes isn't right. The offensive line isn't right. Their skill position talent isn't right. So I lean Chiefs. I lean under in this one. But like I said, I haven't pulled the trigger on either one.
All right, very good. And that's what's fascinating about the betting markets. Here early in the week, I'm thinking I'm not going to be involved in this Kansas City-Denver game at all. And sometimes, there's a line that gets away from you. It moves against you. And, hey, I've lost the best number. I'm not going to get involved anymore now that I can't get the best number that I thought I could on that particular game or that particular side. And then you have instances like this where early in the week, Teddy, I'm like, I'm not going to be involved in this Kansas City-Denver game when it was, 5.5 at the time. But now it's come down to 3, and now all of a sudden a game I wasn't going to be involved in, the line's come my way, and it's come now down to a point where I find that's my strike price. That's the point where I'm going to pull the trigger, and that's where I've arrived now with Kansas City, now that they're laying 3. And that's fascinating. That's the way the betting markets work. You never know where it's going to take a bet away from you, because the line's going to move away from you, and when the line's going to come back to you where you're hoping it will. And all of a sudden it opens up a potential betting opportunity for you. So, Teddy, it's fascinating how the betting markets work on a daily basis. Always keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, but the one thing that we try to do, Ian, and both of us have been doing this for a long time, you're not going to be accurate all the time. Not 100%, not 90%. But if you can hit 4 out of 5 in terms of looking at the leading indicator books and saying, hey, this line's moving in this direction and let's get down right now, or hey, we know the wise guys are going to come in on KC this week. Let's hold off. Maybe we will see a 3. The more experience you have betting, that's something that really helps. So if you talk about, what's the difference between betting year 1 versus betting year 5 versus betting year 15? That's one of the biggest differences, the ability to see the line moves before they happen. And that's something, obviously, that we try to do on this show with Jimmy, with Ian, with myself is, all right, bet this here. Oh, no, you like that side? Wait, plenty of time. Kickoff's not for another 2 days. In this instance, waiting certainly gave you the line you were looking for with Kansas City, that 3, your strike price, now widely available pretty much across the board. You can even get a reduced juice.
Exactly. Minus 105 at Chris, just as one example. So absolutely. And I knew, as someone that was, I knew I wasn't going to be on Denver in this game. And I'm like, as someone that was, it's just a little too high for Kansas City. But I knew right away early in the week, you're not splitting the atom, figuring out that money's coming against Kansas City. Because every week, it seems people are flocking to bet against the Kansas City Chiefs. That's just the way it has been, and it was pretty much that way last year too. For the majority,
there's
of the
a reason
season
for
with
it.
this Chiefs
Ian.
team.
That when you look at the advanced metric stats, the Kansas City Chiefs defense, their stats look atrocious. From a yards per play basis, yards per carry basis, opponents QB rating allowed, Kansas City at or near the bottom of the NFL. And the wise guys, you can count on money coming against Kansas City as long as those defensive stats look the way they do. And with, 4 straight non-covers for the Chiefs, that strategy's paid off in recent weeks for sharper bettors.
All right, we'll catch up on the comments in the chat. I'm terrible at this most of the time. Jimmy's much better at reading the chat comments, but we'll get some in here. Rod Zawacki, Chiefs -8.5, +195. Alternative spread. Like that. That's a decent little value there if you like that. Ray Williams liking Denver. Rod Zawacki, Chiefs win in a shootout. Let's see what else we got here. Tho Marino, Houston Texans ran all over KC. They can't stop anyone's running game. Oh, that's definitely the biggest concern. I mean, third down defense, it seems like 3rd and 5 every time in that game against Houston. There's Houston running the ball. There's Houston getting a first down and keeping the chains moving and keeping that Chiefs defense on the field. There's no question. That's going to have to be a lot better tonight. And unfortunately, with all due respect to Carlos Hyde, which isn't much, to be honest with you, in my opinion, you're facing Lindsey and Royce Freeman tonight. As I'll take those 2 running backs over Carlos Hyde. So it's going to be a taller order for Kansas City tonight. We'll see how they fare against this Denver running game. That's going to be key to their success, that they at least get in the gaps. Those runs up the middle were killing Kansas City on Sunday. You got to be tougher in the interior of your defensive front. We'll see if they can be that way tonight. Let's go to college football, Teddy. We got 2 games on the board. Start with the Sun Belt game. UL Lafayette, Arkansas State. UL Lafayette about -6.5 road favorites currently across the board, 68.5 the total. I made a case for the over in this game just because Arkansas State's offense is great. Their defense is not so great. That's definitely the concern with them. UL Lafayette, more than capable offense. I know they got shut down a little bit in the loss to App State, but App State, when they step down in class in the Sun Belt, that's a very good App State defense. I know App State's defensive numbers in non-conference play were not so good, but I still think it's a very good defense overall, or a better defense once they step down into Sun Belt play, and they proved that in the win against Lafayette. But one hesitation is, even though this is an over matchup, and I said this earlier, the matchups and the fundamentals say over. The one concern is, we've had a little bit of a pattern last couple of weeks. These weeknight Sunbelt games early in the week, midweek, they're staying under. Troy South Alabama last night, the Lafayette App State, which was in this same totals range, high 60s, stayed well under the total. So that's definitely a little bit of a nagging concern I've got in the pit of my stomach. But to me, the matchups and the fundamentals on the field point to there being some points scored in this game tonight. What say you, Teddy, about the Sunbelt matchup tonight?
Well, I mean, Lafayette's got a good defense, and that concerns me in this total range in a weeknight game, because you're right. The offenses aren't in the same sync when they're playing on Wednesday night or Thursday night, as opposed to being in that same rhythm where we're playing every Saturday and every Saturday and every Saturday. Now, Lafayette may have an edge because they played last week during the week, where they played last Wednesday. In that game, but, and I guess Arkansas State's coming, Arkansas State's an over team, and Lafayette isn't, and I don't know who's going to control the flow. I mean, the only thing the Red Wolves can do is play shootouts. That's their MO, and that's why they're dogs in this game. They've given up, 656, 526, 512, 722 yards in their last 4 ball games, and not all of those came against elite offensive teams by any stretch of the imagination. So maybe this is the game where Lafayette and the Raging Cajuns get moving. But again, this is an offense that was held at 254 yards and 7 points last week. I'm not running to the window, or last game, I should say. Or no, it was last week. I'm not running to the window to say, let me get them over 68.5 tonight. Lala's a good defensive team, and in general, I want good defensive teams in weeknight games. But if the shootout correlates with the Arkansas State side, I think if the Raging Cajuns are going to win and cover this game, it's likely to be lower scoring. I don't think they want to get into a game with Arkansas State where they're trying to trade scores with a potent offense that the Red Wolves have.
And they do. They've had a really, really good offenses, not just this year, but years past as well. Been able to have no problems at all moving the football. All right, Pac-12 action, Teddy. We've got UCLA taking on Stanford, and boy, you've got to stay up on the quarterback issues on both sides going into this game. There's a lot of injury news with the quarterback position on both of these teams, especially for Stanford going into this game, and that's why we've seen the numbers shift to the point it is at right now, where Stanford was laying more than a touchdown at one point in this game as home favorites. Now they're laying 3.5 across the board, and even a 3 showing up at Pinnacle right now. That's always, when you see Pinnacle off market from The majority of other books, you got to take notice of that. And you're seeing that right now with Stanford -3 at Pinnacle, 3.5 elsewhere. Total 49.5 in this game. So Jack West time at the quarterback position for Stanford for this game, with Davis Mills out, with KJ Costello out, down to their third quarterback. Will it matter against this pathetic UCLA team? That remains to be seen. And on the other side, will it be Austin Burton making the quarterback start again for UCLA, or will Dorian Thompson-Robinson make his return? Questionable last I looked. I've been looking, yesterday I was looking for info on this. This morning I'm looking for info on this, whether he's going to play. It's still very much, I think, up in the air, probably come down to game time last I checked. So it's going to be one of those guys, Burton or DTR at the quarterback spot for UCLA. But what I'm looking at with this UCLA team, Teddy, and I know it's down to 3.5 because of the Stanford quarterback injuries, down to the third quarterback. They're going to have 3 freshmen on their offensive line starting for them tonight, too. That's definitely a concern. This is a ravaged team along their O-line. And when you're laying points as a favorite with a banged-up O-line, with a third-string quarterback, with as conservative an offensive head coach as you'll ever see in David Shaw, there are my big-time reservations right there for laying 3.5 with Stanford. However, that would be my lean in this game. I'm not involved in it. But I said to the chat earlier, Teddy, if I'm getting involved, I'm laying 3.5 with Stanford. I can't make a case for UCLA right now. I can't make a case for a team that looks like they're a sinking ship falling off a cliff. Chip Kelly in a lot of these games, too. I'm looking at his demeanor on the sideline, and I saw it in the game against Oregon State in that loss, 48-31. He looks disinterested. He looks disheartened. He looks like he's, he doesn't look like he's fully locked in and fired up and just all gung-ho for coaching UCLA football right now. Just from a body language standpoint, I'm not seeing that from Chip Kelly right now. I'm not seeing things that I like. And that's a concern. It's a sieve defense. They gave up 48. They got shredded in that loss by Oregon State. They're 1-5 straight up on the season. The only win you could say is a fluke win. They were down by 20 against Washington State, that crazy, crazy game where Washington State started treating the football like a hand grenade and turning it over all second half, and it resulted in short fields for UCLA and points for their offense and fueled that comeback, that crazy game, 67-63. That's the only win. And now you got UCLA in a price range where, you know what, if they don't win the game, they're going to have to come close now that they're only catching 3.5. So my lean is Stanford. I could only back the Cardinal, but I don't know. Third quarterback, offensive line injuries galore, 3 freshmen on that O-line, a coach that doesn't open up the playbook. You got to be able to put points on the board. It's the same issue I've always had laying points with Stanford and David Shaw in years past, and it's the reason why, even though I lean that way, I'm not going to lay the points tonight with Stanford either. Teddy, what's your thoughts on this Pac-12 matchup?
Yeah, I mean, Stanford's only cover as a favorite this year came in the opener against Northwestern, and we all remember how they covered that game. A fumble 6 with 20 seconds left or whatever it was. Otherwise, that game finishes 10-7. I'm not laying anything, not 1 point, with a team that, again, it's not just the starter who's hurt, it's the backup who's hurt. So now you have the third stringer West. This guy wasn't supposed to play this year. He's not ready. And the offensive line in front of him has 3 frosh. No way I play Stanford tonight. No way am I laying points with a team that's a terrible favorite, that doesn't cover his chalk, that's playing their third-string quarterback who wasn't supposed to play, with an offensive line that won't be able to run the football necessarily, particularly effectively. Can't do it. That being said, I want no part of UCLA either. UCLA is a one-way team for me. Everything you said about the Bruins, I agree with 100%. We don't know yet who's going to play QB tonight. DRT's a game time decision is what I'm hearing, or in pregame decision, et cetera, et cetera. And the line will move based on his availability. But if I'm going to get involved in this game, the only way I'm going to look is to the under. UCLA's not playing at this crazy Chip Kelly pace this year. Hasn't happened. The personnel's not there. The scheme's not there. Kelly's not interested enough. I don't know what it is, but they're not playing at a crazy pace. That offense hasn't worked. And I know they've given up 48 3 times their last 4 ball games, but Stanford doesn't get the 48 very often. It's just not how they're built. UCLA's offense isn't working. Stanford's defense is fine. At least it's okay. So if I had to play the game, I would play under, but I can't lay points with the Cardinal here. And it's 3.5 now, just by the way. It looked like it would go into 3, and that's not happening. Back up to 3.5 just about everywhere in the last half hour. One more reason to make sure that you're bookmarking and checking that SBR odds page all the time. That's one of those things should be open on your screen all day long. You want to be aware where the money's coming and where it starts to come. That way you get your wager down if you need to at that given moment. So no action for me. Lean under. But I'm not excited about playing, with that UCLA defense. I'm not super excited about that under either, but that's the only way I would play it.
Yeah, it's a tricky game. It's pick your poison game. You know, you want to take a UCLA team that looks it looks completely awful, horrendous, and a coach that looks disinterested. I mean, this is now multiple. I've seen UCLA multiple weeks, and I see Chip Kelly with that blank 1,000-mile stare, and it looks like he wants to be anywhere else but there right now. That's a concern. He just doesn't look like he's got that. He's locked into his job right now and focused and really gung ho and excited about it. You know, he looks like, oh, geez, I got to wake up and go to work today. That's the kind of that's the kind of facial expressions I'm seeing out of Chip Kelly right now. And that's a concern for me as well. But yeah, I mean, Stanford, you're right. They've been a terrible favorite, third string quarterback, freshman on the O-line. That's a concern. I'm going to get to the question. Paco Healy in the chat had a question for Teddy about one of these Saturday games. We'll get to that. We're going to do some Saturday, Sunday stuff at the end of the show. I'll definitely get to that question for Teddy later on. But we'll move on to the baseball game now. It's a big one. ALCS Game 4, Greinke Tanaka, Astros Yankees. Yankees minus 125 in that range, 26 at Heritage, 24 at 5 dimes, 8.5 the total in this game. This is now I've been betting every game in these playoffs, NLCS or ALCS. This is one of the stronger opinions I've got. I'm going to lay this price with the Yankees tonight. I think it's their spot. You know, they don't want to go down 3-1 in this series. I don't. Not that they can't come back and win 3 straight, but I don't think they want to put themselves in that position to do it. This is the guy. If you're going to hit someone on this Astros pitching staff, this is the guy you're going to hit for the Yankees. Greinke's struggled in the postseason. The long ball, the gopher ball, has killed him in the postseason. On a day where the wind's blowing out a little bit at Yankee Stadium, and that stadium's not good when you're struggling with allowing home runs like Greinke is right now. This is a chance for the Yankees lineup to get their game back a little bit, get some offense going. I definitely like this Yankee side tonight. Tanaka's been very good so far in the postseason, and he's also been very good against the Astros head-to-head. His head-to-head numbers against the Astros quite good as well. Tanaka 1.32 ERA in the postseason, 1.50 overall against the Astros head-to-head. There's a Yankee spot. I think the Yankee matchups work against Greinke. Power hitting team, an offense that I think on a lineup that's overdue to get going. And I didn't even think the lineup was that poor in the last game, Game 3 against Garrett Cole. You look at it, if Didi Gregorius's warning track fly ball leaves the yard and instead of ending up in a glove, that's a 3-2 Yankee lead after the 5th inning in Game 3 and maybe changes that game completely. And we're talking about a completely different complexion and maybe ending in that game instead of an Astros Game 3 win. So they were that close from taking that lead in that game. This is still a potent Yankee lineup against a pitcher that's struggling with the long ball, against a lineup that can make you pay for it when you're struggling with the long ball. So I like the Yankees here at about minus 124, the best price right now at 5 dimes. I wouldn't argue with the over as well. I like I say, I'm splitting it up with the over, full game and first 5. I think first 5 is definitely something I want as well as the full game, splitting it up because my handicapping thought process here is more of the damage might be done against Greinke early in the game than it will be against the Astros relievers later in the game. So that's what I'm looking at, Teddy. Yankees money line and also a split between the full game over and the first 5 over, which is 4.5 minus 105. You got any thoughts on this one, Game 4, the ALCS?
So let me preface my thoughts with that my MLB postseason has been downright lousy. And the other night I'm like, oh yeah, you take both dogs, or we're going to split, you're going to get one. No. We were in trouble right from the get-go. So I haven't been lighting up in the MLB postseason. All that being said, you better believe I bet the Yankees tonight. Of course I bet the Yankees tonight. It's the ultimate Yankee spot. And the rainout yesterday is exactly what the Yankees needed. You talked about Greinke's struggles. Okay. Zach Greinke has had issues in the postseason in Milwaukee and in Arizona. And so far this year, 2 suspect starts at best for Houston. Greinke is not great. We love Greinke in a low leverage situation. We love him in a game where, he's pitching against the Royals in July. I don't want Zach Greinke in the Bronx in October. He's not that pitcher. And the postseason track record shows that he's not that pitcher. And the fact that the Yankees had the day off. All right. Number one, you just faced Verlander and Cole. Okay. Now, let's get away for a minute. Let's come back and let's see if we can get that warning track fly ball to go over the fence. And the Yankees have the lineup to do that. No question they do. I think that helps. Issue two that it helps the Yankees, they were looking at bullpen game, bullpen game, bullpen game. Now the bullpen's fresh. So they can use all their best arms tonight. And we know how good the best arms in that. Yeah, I know Ottavino's had a bad postseason, but he's the only one. And when you're looking at elite level bullpens, the Yankees have it. And when they're fresh and ready to go, behind Tanaka, who is a proven postseason performer, unlike Greinke, and the sharp money's coming on Houston here. Not my money. I like the Yanks. I know the Yanks are the square side today. I don't care. I think the series goes back. Or I think the series is 2-2 after tonight.
Yeah, I know you're one of the people that taught me 7-8 years ago when I was first starting out. Who the hell cares where the line moves? Who the hell cares if it's sharp or square or whatever the hell? You handicap the game. You put in your work. You put in your time. And if you find you're getting value and you're on the right side and you've capped the game for a certain way to play out, forget the line moves and where the line's going, where the line's not going. You go ahead, you pull the trigger, you stick with your convictions and your guns and your opinions, and you go with it. I learned long ago. Yeah, line movement. I don't give two shits about it anymore. Excuse my French. But yeah, exactly. So
let me jump in here because there is one key. I mean, we can't say we don't give two shits about line movement, but we're not going to freak out because the line moves for you or against you. That being said, anytime you're betting, you're trying to beat the closing number and get the best of the number. So it's not like you're saying, "Oh, I don't give a shit because the line was 2.5 and now it's 5. Oh, I'm going to lay it." You want to be on the early part of that line move, not getting in after it's already moved. So the line does matter, but whether it's sharp money, whether it's square money, whether it's a line move that's reasonable, it's not anything to freak you out or get you off a game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I meant. But I mean, in terms of the line movement making me freak out, it's like, how is this line going against the side I like? Oh, I can't bet it now. No, you'd never, ever think that. Never. And that's something I learned immediately because if, these people that are moving these lines, they'll get stuff wrong too. All right. They'll have dead wrong side losers too. They're not all going to be right moves, correct moves, right sides. And that's the point we stress definitely with freaking out to line moves that may be going against you. So Teddy and I in agreement. We both like the Yankees here in Game 4 to tie this series up at 2 games apiece. Let's do some Saturday, Sunday stuff in terms of NFL and college football. First of all, Paco Healy in the chat had a question for Teddy. He wants his opinion on the San Diego State-San Jose State game on Saturday. San Diego State right now laying 8.5 on the road, total 46 in that game. San Jose State's got an offense, and they've got a passing game with Josh Love. He's been pretty damn impressive. Scared the hell out of me as someone that was on Nevada last week. Barely survived the win in that one with the Wolfpack, but I also had the over, so that was a no-sweat winner as well in that game. I don't know. San Diego State's an under team. San Jose State's an over team. It's personally not a game I'm going to be betting. Do you have anything on it, Teddy?
So, I mean, they're 2 bet-on teams. And you talked about the Spartans last week and the offense where, the big step up in defensive class facing Nevada one week versus San Diego State the next week. That Aztecs defense is very real. And I worry about Love's ability to chuck the football around this week. And San Diego State is a threat to score on special teams every week. Or on defense, I should say every week. That defense is loaded with playmakers. And Agnew's throwing the football around. There really is a lot to like about San Diego State right now. But this point spread is not where the Aztec stats are pretty good, and they're getting a fair bit of respect from the betting market. The money came against San Diego State last week, and it was wrong. They ended up closing the covering number against Wyoming. Game-winning drive, confidence-inducing, but that's the way they play. They're not a team that's going to be winning these games generally 3-4 touchdowns, and they're not a team I'm real comfortable laying a price with on the road of more than a touchdown. Even against a Spartans team that struggled against them. So it's not a game I'm going to bet. It's not a total. In general, San Diego State games, I want to bet under the total. They snuck over last week because Agnew's throwing the ball better right now. The downfield passing, no, I shouldn't say the downfield. They have some semblance of a passing game now, which wasn't the case in recent seasons. They have a chance on 3rd and 15, which was never the case in recent years under Rocky Long's team. But it's not a game I'm going to bet. Good luck, however you decide to play it.
All right, there we go. So briefly, what am I looking at right now in the college football? Like I cashed with Nevada last week, and it was partially I like the change to Malik Henry, the Florida State transfer. He was on Last Chance U, the Netflix show. I think it sparked that Nevada team. They're still not a very good defense. They proved that. The passing game can shred them, but they're catching 3 touchdowns at Utah State. On Saturday, Utah State didn't cover the last time they were a home favorite in this price range against Colorado State. They only won that game, I believe, by 10 points. So there's a lot of points to be laying for Utah State, and I get the sense that Jay Norvell kind of read his team the riot act after that 54-3 loss to Hawaii. I mean, that was an embarrassment. They got blown out. He sort of ripped his team after that. Said it was a wake-up call. It opened our eyes, and they did play better off the bye against San Jose State, but their defense is still struggling. So I like Nevada. I did take the 21.5. I got 21.5. It's 21, still prevailing number across the board. And I like the over in that game. Maybe there's some weather issues in that game that we need to look into further. I got to maybe look at an updated forecast. I usually do that Thursday and Friday. But I see no reason that game doesn't go over the total. I mean, the Utah State offense, Gary Anderson's the coach. They're still playing fast. They've still got the tremendous quarterback there in Jordan Love. And Nevada's still got a pretty bad defense. So I think Utah State will put up points. I think Nevada will too, as I think Malik Henry's given them a spark in terms of the offense. So I'm looking at dogging over in that game, Nevada-Utah State. Teddy, did you have any strong opinion on that game, Wolfpack and Aggies?
Definite rain on Saturday in Logan, winds 15 to 20 miles an hour. So it's going to be a sloppy
That's
field.
why it's coming in on under, yep.
I'm sorry?
That's why it's coming in on the under then. You said it perfectly, yep.
Yeah, of course. The Wolfpack that is not a defense that I trust to get stops against Utah State. And the one thing that we've seen from the Aggies, when they get rolling, that offense gets rolling, they're a blur. And this Utah State team is not as good as last year's squad. And I don't know that the markets have fully reflected that. And there may well be some value on Nevada in this +3 touchdowns range because of that fact. And Nevada can score. And I think that they, in theory, should be able to put up some points here, even on a sloppy field. But I really worry about that Wolfpack defense. And this is the other issue why I'm not going to take Nevada as a 3-touchdown dog. All right, you see it once, you say, okay, that was a bad day. You see it twice, you say, no freaking way this team can't hang. Nevada got punched by Oregon and they quit. And they got punched by Hawaii and they quit. They get punched by Utah State. Are they not quitting? I don't trust them to punch back. So that'll keep me off the over, and that'll keep me off the underdog in this one. Once you see a team, the first time, all right, they had a bad day. The second time, that's your red flag. That means, I don't understand Norvell read on the riot act afterwards. That's fine. Utah State's faster. They're better. And if Utah State gets rolling, I worry that Nevada will, tuck down in the shell once again.
All right, absolutely. So quickly, other games I kind of like on the card. I like Tulane against Memphis. I bet against Memphis last week too with Temple. You worry a little bit now. First loss of the season for Memphis. A little bit of a bubble burst theory, and in fact, and it's not just that. It's Tulane's a really good football team, and Willie Fritz has done a fantastic job. I like Tulane in that spot. +4 in that one, or +4.5 is I think the number I got in on it at. It's 4 still. 4 still a playable number, definitely in my mind with that one. It's a tricky game. I'm tempted, Teddy, by this Georgia Tech team. I know they're over. They haven't covered a number yet this year, and they've been pretty bad. But we're going to trust Miami laying 18.5 points right now. A Miami team that could barely move the football last week, even though they beat Virginia. A Miami team that lost to Virginia Tech the week before that. A Virginia Tech team that hasn't impressed anybody. Is this the week Georgia Tech can cover a number, Teddy? What do you think about that one? It's an interesting handicap there.
So first of all, I agree 100% with Tulane. I think Tulane might be the better team compared to Memphis. And when when I have a team that may well be the better team and I'm catching 4, I'm interested. Memphis has not impressed me at any stage this season. Even that opener against Ole Miss stands out to me in retrospect. No. What was the second game? You said something that I had a good point in the second game too.
Georgia Tech, Miami.
Oh, right.
Yeah. For
the
Georgia Tech to cover. Finally.
Yeah, the Hurricanes can't be laying 18, and the markets are saying that the sharp money has come on Georgia Tech this week. But it's one of those leap of faith games. All right. You're like, I know Miami can't be laying this. Can we trust Georgia Tech enough to hang around and not get destroyed. And that's a leap of faith. I've seen nothing from Georgia Tech that makes me excited about betting on them. I know I don't want Miami. I know I ain't laying, and I know this price is probably a notch or two higher than it should be. And the only way I can play it, is Georgia Tech plus. But have you seen them play? I mean, have you seen anything bet on from Georgia Tech other than that this line is now too high? But have you seen anything other than that makes you excited about betting on Georgia Tech? Because I've seen nothing from that team that makes me like, yeah, they're just around the corner. They're just about to turn it on. I worry about them getting run out of the gym or run out of the building.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I'm conflicted on that game. And I took Temple against Georgia Tech. And the part of it, because Georgia Tech was one of the biggest 360-degree paradigm shifts you'll ever see from one season to the next.
Yep.
You go from triple option to pro-style offense with recruits that weren't brought in for that kind of style. And it's been a mess right now that Jeff Collins has to iron out in his first year as the head coach here. It's an issue. We'll get to some NFL quickly right at the end for Sunday. I'll run down some of the plays I'm looking at for NFL on Sunday. One more in college that I'm looking at, because I know I cashed a ticket, fortuitous one, with Central Michigan against Western Michigan earlier this year in this Michigan-MAC rivalry game. Well, we got another one this week, Western Michigan against Eastern Michigan. We know these rivalry games, underdogs are good in them. We know Eastern Michigan, historically under Chris Creighton, is a very good underdog, not a good favorite. I'm looking at EMU there, plus 8.5. You got any take on that one, Teddy?
So the Central Michigan cover was lucky because they got the last score in a game where they were getting blown out. However, they were the right side in that game at Western Michigan. They got stopped inside the 10. I think it was 4 different times, but they didn't get a point. So even though it covered through the back door, I too was on Central Michigan that day, and I felt lucky to cash that ticket. They were on the wrong side in that contest. And the fact that they lost the turnover battle, had 4 times inside the 10 and didn't score, and still covered, spoke volumes about how undervalued a team they were. Central's a moneymaker. We like that team. When it comes to Eastern and Western, so this Eagles team has been pretty good. This year's team is not that good. Western has an offense. That offensive line is loaded. Wasenick is chucking the football around. I think the Broncos are going to be capable of putting points up against that Eastern Michigan defense, and I'm not convinced that Eastern Michigan is going to be able to trade points or stop them. We like Creighton as a dog. Of course we do. He's had a great track record in that role. We like him more as a road dog. It's not like there's a whole lot of home field edge in Ypsilanti these days. There's ever been a whole lot of home field edge in Ypsilanti. So it's not a game that I'm playing. I certainly understand the case for Eastern Michigan. But, again, last week, that was their get-right game. And they blew it late. And that concerns me here. It does. Western's the better of these two teams by a decent margin, in my opinion. So I'm not going to play it, but I'm not taking the home dog.
All right, not taking the home dog in Eastern Michigan. I'm thinking of it. I still think I might go in on it, but we'll see. We still got some things to iron out. We got to dot the I's, cross the T's still. NFL, I'm pretty much set on what I like for Sunday, so we'll run through. I'm just going to rhyme off what I'm looking at here on Sunday. I'm looking at laying the 3 with New York Giants and the over in that game against Arizona. I cashed a ticket with over the total Arizona-Atlanta last Sunday. I didn't even have to worry about that one. And that total got hammered, Teddy. I think that total was like 47 or 48, and it closed at almost 52, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of people liking that over, including me. It got there easy. I think this is a good chance for Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, to finally shred a defense, because Arizona's defense is hopeless. It's terrible. But Kyler Murray against a below-average Giant defense, I think he'll move the ball too. I think I favor the spot, and certainly the Giants are going to get skill position guys back. We're looking at Ingram coming back. We're looking at Saquon Barkley coming back. Huge for this Giants offense, and I like the situation for them. So I like them laying 3 and over the total, a high-scoring game there. I'm trying to make a case for Indy against Houston on Sunday as well. People are getting very excited about Houston, and I understand that. They've played nice. They've beat up on Atlanta. Big win against Kansas City with all the injuries. But I don't know. I'm looking at Indy at home where they're very good with a coaching edge with Reich over O'Brien. I know Watson's playing lights out right now. They're playing really good. And Tunsil's made a huge difference on that O-line. There's no doubt. They're giving him time. The sacks have gone down against Watson. So That's concerning. And Indy's defense is still, they shut down KC on Sunday night a couple weeks ago, but, they've still got some injuries. Darius Leonard, though, coming back is huge. That's enormous that the Colts are going to get him back. I like the situation for Indy. I think Houston doesn't go on extended winning streaks with Bill O'Brien. They have a clunker usually right around the corner just when you start buying into Houston. I think this clunker is this Sunday against Indy. I kind of like Detroit against Minnesota as that line climbs there. I know it's a short week, but Detroit PO'd over the loss to Green Bay. I don't trust Cousins and the Vikings on the road against. I think a Detroit defense has played pretty good. I was kind of impressed with the way they played against Rodgers on Monday night in that Falcons offense. I like the Rams now at 2.5, 3 against Atlanta. Straight fade of Atlanta. Nothing to like with them. Terrible defense. And I think this has to be a spot. I know Goff on the road has been trouble. This offense hasn't looked right since the Super Bowl last year. Whispers that people have figured out Sean McVay and Jared Goff all of a sudden. But I think against a bad defense, an Atlanta team with another awful, horrendous, heartbreaking loss, I think they find it difficult to get up off the mat. Maybe the Ramsey trade pumps the Rams up a little bit, so I like the Rams there in that one. And I like Baltimore-Seattle over the total 49. I don't trust either defense there. I think Lamar can make plays against Seattle, and I think Seattle can do what they want. Russell Wilson's been unbelievable this season, and there'll be a high-scoring game in Seattle. So there you go. All my NFL leans and opinions right there, Teddy. You got to say on any of those.
Yeah, I got to say on all of them. You know that, Ian. I know we're a little short on time, so I'll try to breeze through it. Arizona Giants over, that makes a ton of sense to me. Ton of sense. Arizona's a dead nuts over team. They're going to score points. They're going to give up points. The Giants have no defense. And as you mentioned, their skill position talent is coming back. That's one. The markets have already moved there. That's as sharp a play as there is when it comes to overs on the NFL board this Sunday. Makes a ton of sense to me. As for laying with the Giants, I wouldn't talk you out of it. Extra time to prepare. Arizona is not a team that I trust to really go on a winning streak. So it would be Giants or pass from a side there. I don't know that I get there with the Giants defense. I think the over might be the better of the two. Houston and Indy. I put a Texans future in my pocket just to win the AFC at 9-1. I've got Houston as the second best team in the AFC right now. I've got them ahead of Kansas City, behind New England, because they've got a defense and the Chiefs don't, and apparently that matters in the playoffs. So Houston's not a team I'm necessarily looking to step in front of. From a spot standpoint, I totally get it. And Indy matches up fairly well with Houston. The Colts are not a team I'm looking to bet against. I won't have the Texans in my pocket this weekend, even though I do have a future on Houston to win the AFC. Again, 9-1, and there's only one team that's better than them. I thought that was too good to pass up. I'm with you on Detroit. And again, the stats show the Vikings with this great statistical profile and the Lions as a team that can't stop the run. And that's why we're seeing the money coming on Minnesota. Minnesota's outgained their opponents by 1.5 yards per play, and Detroit's rush defense numbers are dicey. And to both of those stats, I call bullshit on both of them. Minnesota is not number 2 in the NFL. I know they have number 2 in the NFL right now, and yardage different. I might even be number 1. And from between what they allow on offense and what they gain, what they allow on defense, what they gain on offense, yards per play differential, I'm not buying that with Minnesota. That offense is not that explosive, and the defense is not. They had a bunch of big plays last week to make the numbers look worse than they were. And that game against Green Bay was another game where the stats were not indicative of the score on the field. Minnesota's box scores look better than their final scores. I believe in the Lions defense a little bit more than the markets do. And I, too, would go to Detroit in that game. Rams, 100%. Atlanta's a fade. Atlanta's a one-way team. If you're getting involved in an Atlanta game, you're betting on against them, in my opinion. And the markets are looking the other way. And I thought that they'd say that when you deal out the malcontents, Peters, bye-bye, go to Oakland, have fun. All right, we're going to mortgage our future and get Jalen Ramsey in here. And even if Ramsey doesn't play, even if he's a non-factor this week, from a locker room standpoint, that's meaningful for LA. They're saying, hey, you don't like it here? Bye-bye. We want guys who want to win. So I think from a team that lost 3 in a row, this is a statement game for the Rams. If they lose this, maybe we start to look at them as Atlanta. But the Falcons are a one-way team. I'm either betting against Atlanta or I'm not getting involved. And you talked about Baltimore, Seattle over. I certainly wouldn't talk you out of that one. Russell Wilson is the NFL MVP through the first 6 weeks of the season. I don't think there's any question. 14-0 TD to INT ratio. 2 defenses that are a little bit overrated. Well, Baltimore's defense is a lot overrated. That defense stinks. They can't stop anybody. I anticipate Wilson having a pretty big game here. And Lamar Jackson's making plays, man. And that Seahawks defense is not what it's been not even close. So over there makes a ton of sense for this better.
Absolutely.
That was all of them,
You
right?
seem to agree with most of what I like there. Very good. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know Baltimore's defensive point allowance last week looked better, but Cincinnati's a bottom tier offense. And even then, the Cincinnati got through the back door late in that game, and Baltimore didn't stop them then. That defense, I agree with you on the Ravens defense. That unit has dropped down significantly from where they've been in years past. And we've seen it on full display multiple times. So I do think we'll get a shootout there in the Pacific Northwest on Sunday. And I almost took the Rams last week, and I said, I'm not going to do it. I thought buy low. I'm not going to do it because I love that Niners team and Kyle Shanahan. And I said, I'm not going to take the Rams. This is the week I think now I'm going to jump in, buy low, because Atlanta's not San Francisco, and I think we'll find that out on Sunday. We are completely out of time, but Teddy, this is a blast. I always enjoy talking to you, and it's fun hanging with you doing this on Thursdays when I've had to fill in for Jimmy. The Bag hosting the show. Teddy, great being with you. Great appearance as always. You're here every morning on Betting with the Bag. Let the viewers know how they can find you on Twitter.
Just find me here. Come watch the show every day, Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Teddy_Covers. But let's wish Jimmy a speedy recovery. Hope you feel better, buddy. Thank you guys in the forums for hanging out, listening to me and Ian talk and sharing your questions. Hope I did a decent job answering them, and we'll do it again tomorrow. Enjoy the games. Good luck tonight, guys. Thanks, Ian. Always fun hanging out with you too, buddy. It's like every time we see you, it's like, oh, it's old times, man. I enjoy spending time with you, Ian. It's a pleasure.